Good morning, I'm Adam Sexton. Last Thursday, the New Hampshire State Senate passed its version of the state budget, a $13 billion plus spending plan with quite a lot of policy worked into it as well. Here this morning to unpack some of the hot button issues are the Senate Majority and Minority Leaders, Senator Jeb Bradley of Wolfboro and Senator Donna Soucy of Manchester. Thank you both for joining us. And Senator Bradley, let's start with you on the financial side. This has been something like a 10-year project for you, but are we getting business taxes to the lowest point possible in this budget, or is the long-term goal to go even lower?
So our goal was to lower business taxes to make New Hampshire competitive to states in the rest of the country and in the Northeast. And we're getting there. And I think our goal was to reduce business taxes to about 7.5%. And it's working. Our revenues are up significantly. We have one of the nation's lowest unemployment rates, and this is post-pandemic. And we have the nation's lowest poverty rate. So businesses are crying out for more employees. They want to be in New Hampshire. So I think that making New Hampshire competitive has helped hardworking men and women across our state, but it's also helped small businesses, the backbone of our state and our economy.
Senator Soucy, what's your perspective on these tax cuts?
Well, our focus has been small businesses, of course, right along, but our focus has really been on reducing property taxpayers. Small business owners are property taxpayers, and so are families throughout the Granite State. We offered several proposals that were not adopted in this budget that would have provided direct targeted aid to our hotels, our restaurants, and would have provided more real property tax relief that we believe would have benefited all Granite Staters. Now's not the time to increase taxes, but it's also not the time to phase out taxes to benefit the most wealthy here in the state of New Hampshire. We want to help the small businesses and families around our state.
Not just the numbers in this budget. Obviously, the budget trailer bill contains a lot of policy as well. Let's jump into some of that. Senator Bradley, what was behind the decision to move the ban on abortion after 24 weeks gestation into the budget trailer rather than just as standalone legislation?
Well, I need to talk about property taxes for a moment because that was an absolute priority for us. And I think the way that we propose to do it is much better than Senator D'Alessandro did. It'll be longer term. And over the course of this budget, about $400 million is going to go back to either cities and towns or schools. And that's going to help lower property taxes. That was a huge priority for us. I have to say, you know, my friend Senator Soucy voted against the reduction in the statewide property tax. But on the abortion issue, I think it's important to know that 43 other states, Adam, have some sort of late-term abortion ban so that you can't have an abortion at 8 months or 9 months unless there is significant medical complications for the mother. 43 other states already have that post-viability prohibition on late-term abortions, and I think that brings us into the mainstream of American thinking.
And Senator Soucy, how do you respond there? Are Democrats protecting an extreme procedure in this case?
No, not at all. As a matter of fact, yesterday was really a sad day, I think, in the state of New Hampshire. Abortion and reproductive health care rights have been a bipartisan issue in this state for as long as I can remember. And yesterday was a sad day because both the state Senate and the governor basically told New Hampshire women that their rights don't matter. It's nice to talk about 43 states having late-term abortion bans, but the real truth is what this legislation does is far, far more serious and dangerous. We're talking about cases where the health of the mother is at stake, the health of the fetus is at stake, and there are no late-term abortions performed here in the state of New Hampshire for convenience or other reason. These are very, very severe medical conditions that families have to make decisions about. And this legislation went so far. So far, it doesn't even include an exemption for rape or incest. 43 other states are not as extreme as what passed in the Senate yesterday, and it's a sad day for women and families in the state of New Hampshire that it passed.
Just back to the original question, Senator Bradley, why is this in the budget versus a separate piece of legislation? Was this something the governor requested?
Well, no, we just thought that that was the appropriate place to put it. And again, I would disagree with the characterization of my good friend, Senator Soucy. it's not extreme. 43 other states have limitations on abortion after what is generally a 24-week period of viability. And that's not extreme. And most people in New Hampshire actually support our position that at that point, it should not be a choice. And yes, we have the appropriate health and medical exceptions to protect the health and the life of the expectant mother. So I don't think this is extreme at all. It's just recognizing that an abortion at 8 months, at 9 months potentially, shouldn't happen unless it's to protect the health or life of the mother.
Senator Soucy, obviously.
Senator Bradley, I don't think any of them are happening. That's the point. The point is that this is a procedure that is very rare, and it happens in the most tragic of cases. And you don't even provide the kind of protections for the mother. You provide none for the fetus, and you have no exception for rape or incest. So it is extreme.
Moving on to the next highly controversial topic, we've got the language from HB 544, the Divisive Concepts Bill, into the budget trailer. That's the anti-critical race theory bill. Senator Bradley, how is this different than the original language? Speaking to some lawyers, they say all this did was just get more vague.
No, I totally disagree with that characterization. I think the language is very clear. It's not the bill that the House passed. It's a very different bill. It strengthens our anti-discrimination statutes that we've had on the books for a long, long time, that people should not be discriminated against by virtue of their age, their sex, their gender identity, their sexual orientation, their race, their creed, their religion, their national origin, and a few other categories. And so what we've done is we have strengthened that to make sure that for teaching kids, our most precious resource, teaching kids, that you can't teach them that somehow by virtue of these characteristics that they're born with, that they are somehow either racist or sexist or oppressive, or that they're superior or inferior. It's really clear that this is an anti-discrimination prohibition, and that's important. And I would just add, Adam, there is nothing in this bill, nothing that bars or bans or seeks to circumvent any gender bias or racial bias training or any other bias training that employers, public employers or schools would want to do. That is clearly protected under this bill. And the last thing I would add is, you know, we had a long debate about this last night. Senator Soucy and I'm sure both remember that debate. And I was citing specific language from the bill. And my friends that didn't like the language, they just cited vague things like, well, it's incomprehensible or something like that. But saying that a child in a school is somehow innately racist or sexist or oppressive or superior or inferior through their teaching, I think most people would say that's wrong. And that's why I think most people support it. And the governor, we've worked with the attorney general on this language. He's very supportive of it. And I think that it just strengthens our anti-discrimination statute. And lastly, I think, you know, as I said last night on the floor, I tried to teach my kids that they should judge people by the content of their character, in the words of the late Dr. Martin Luther King, not the color of their skin. And I think that's what this is about.
Senator Soucy, your response there.
Well, what this is about is language, once again, that was inserted into a budget that has nothing to do with our general fund appropriations. I mean, this is, once again, a divisive policy issue. And who's weighed in on this? Well, the fact is nobody's gotten to weigh in on Senator Bradley's language because it never had a public hearing. But who's been opposed to this? Medical professionals, the business community, faith leaders, community leaders, and most importantly, on Wednesday, the governor's own advisory council on diversity and inclusion weighed in on this language and said it is going to pose a problem with other legislation that we've passed to provide this kind of training to law enforcement and to members of our judicial branch. This language is vague. Yes, Senator Bradley kept repeating the same section about being able to teach, but the protections that you claim to have put in this bill are protections that already exist in our human rights statute. You're not advancing any agenda and you're not advancing any rights. You're simply repeating them so that you can limit what an educator can teach in school.
I just want to shoehorn one more topic here, but before we go, we got DCYF funding. There was a compromise, Senator Bradley. Instead of defunding 22 positions, you added 10 with an option for 12 more. Explain the fix.
Yeah, so we didn't defund any positions. Right now, there are 37 vacant positions at the Department of Children, Youth, and Families. And on a bipartisan basis, you know, especially with Governor Sununu's leadership when he first became governor, that this was a priority, that we improve, you know, the situation at the Division of Youth, Children, and Families that he inherited. And so we have added a significant number of staff positions, but they're not easy to fill. And there are 37 positions right now that are vacant. So what we did is we authorized the next 10, and with the opportunity to go before the fiscal committee, which can approve a transfer to fund the remaining 12 if and when they become necessary, and the first 37 and then with 10 more get filled. So I think it's a pretty reasonable way to do it.
Senator Soucy, you got the last 30 seconds on this. You say it's not enough.
Look, child protection has been a bipartisan issue, no question about it. But the department and the governor have not worked as diligently to prioritize filling these positions. Democrats wanted to add more positions to the budget, and that measure failed.
Maybe in the next budget we can add more time to close-up. We'll have to get that from both of you in the 2023 budget.